evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our podcast, Beneath Your Skin. This is Gaia, still around, closer and closer to Snap. Thank God we have this podcast, otherwise, I will be long gone.
Yes, I'm pretty much in the same boat as Gaia. Zoe here, being a little bit spaced out. I just want to go outside. I want to go for a walk. I want to go into town. I want to do anything. I want to go to HMV and buy DVDs. I know that I've got all the streaming, but I want to just go look at shelves and go, ooh, I want to go buy some pops. I want to maybe buy some socks. I don't know, do anything. So yeah, podcasting is our reprieve from the being locked in the house all the time.
Yes, pretty much. Pretty much. I am so glad to have Zoe in this madness. Otherwise, really, I don't know what I would have done with myself. It's a very hard time, but we are trying to stay sane as much as we can. And today we are going to talk about the movie called The Vatican Tapes. And I just found out that Zoe and I don't agree on this movie. So this is going to be very interesting. And Zoe, tell me.
So I hated the film. I just thought it was so boring. Unbelievably boring, and it had some of the cheesiest lines and just some stupid things. It's like, I'm going to be darting all over it, but the bit that had me going, what the hell, was when she coughs up some eggs and it's like, oh, Father, what does that mean? Well, it represents the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I'm like, yes, of course. Eggs is the Holy Trinity. I don't understand. When the film starts, I loved seeing all the found footage, like little clips, and the news clips and the news interviews of like possession and politics. And I was like, oh my God, this film is going to be so good. I'm loving the idea of like the Vatican is archiving all the news stories and all the information. It's like, this is going to be really interesting about how they're going through all this information. And I was invested. There was some really interesting like body horror. There was ideas of stories and the fact that they had like news footage. It was great. Then the movie started and it just went into bog standard cliched, I'm possessed. Woo. And I don't know if it was for the film's detriment, but at least 3 members of the cast were in other things I'm watching. So, like, the dad is the same guy who plays the dad in Batwoman. So it's Batwoman's dad. And I was like, hey, it's Batwoman's dad. And then I was looking at the main girl going, what do I know you from? And it turns out that she's Alison in The Magicians, which I'm currently watching. And I don't like Alison that much, especially now that she's gone a little bit evil dark side and is being a bit annoying. And so she was exactly the same, and I was like, oh God, it's you being you again. And then the priest is from Ant-Man, and who has the bus that goes bibbidi, who does all the like, and then my cousin Mackie does blah 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 blah. And he's like, oh, he's such like, I find him really funny, he's a good comedian. And this one he played a priest, and it was so deadpan, and I was just like, oh, and they explained everything. So you see these crows appearing, and anyone who knows anything about horror and the mythology and ideas and iconography knows that like crows and ravens all represent like death, because obviously they eat bodies, carrion, and they are considered carrion. So it's like, oh yes, yes. So a crow turns up, and this freaking priest, archduke, whatever it was that turned up, not the archduke, the other dude, was just like, aha, there's a crow at the window. That is the sign of the devil. I'm like, thanks, exposition. I know that. This would be far more mysterious if you hadn't have just gone, that crow is the sign of the devil. And it's just, and then it was like boring and doing everything. And then there's like, oh, we're in a mental asylum now because you can't have demonic possession without ending up in a mental asylum. And I'm like, okay, oh, every single beat was like, I've seen this before. Then the bloody egg scene, and I was just like, what's going on? And it was just like, and I didn't trust the guy doing the exorcism. He's like, you must trust me. They're like, the closer we get to demons, the further away from God we are, but we have to. And I'm like, you don't sound like a kosher priest. You're preaching that we should be more hellish and actually not go to God, and oh yeah, we should just kill the girl. But then the very last twist, I was like, Okay, no, I'm kind of on board with this. And I love the idea of the devil having a stadium full of people going, "Worship me." And so I was like, well, that I liked. It's a shame I have to sit for like an hour and 20 to get to the last couple of minutes that I was like, I like that idea. But like, yeah, Olivia Taylor Dudley, she's not that good. And especially like she's from Chernobyl Diaries, and she's also in one of the Paranormal Activity movies. So I'm just like, oh, and Magician. So I'm like, oh, it's you again. It's the woman who gets possessed. Oh, you're in another horror film. You're in another horror thing, and you're doing the same thing. So I was a bit like, it wasn't good, and I was bored, really, really bored. Sorry, Gaia.
No, it's not a problem. I mean, I didn't write the movie, and I didn't directed it, so
Yeah.
perfectly fine if you didn't like it. I liked the story behind the movie, the Antichrist story. It's a very fascinating one, and I think in this moment it's also a little bit a thing you have to think about, because in the book of Revelation we learn that the Antichrist will be one person coming on earth to mimic what Jesus Christ did. He will be someone you want to believe into. He will be someone who is good and gives you the opportunity of freedom, but the freedom he offers is a way to take you from God. And he will be trustworthy because, after all, the Antichrist is just someone that Lucifer himself will send. And we know why Lucifer has a little bit of a grudge against God and against humanity. So I like the idea of the Antichrist. I like the idea of Angela being called after the angels, and being so beautiful, exactly like Lucifer was. And there is the last scene, the final moment we see her. She's surrounded by light. She looks exactly like an angel. She looks exactly like we think Lucifer looked before he fell. So I like that. I have to admit, I recognized Father Lozano like the guy in the John Wick movie, the mechanic
Yes, as
that will have
well.
to call the Russian mob boss and tell him that his son stole John Wick's car.
Yes, I
And
forgot
I
Michael Penner was that as well. Oh,
and
yeah.
and I still remember the boss face. He was like, "Oh shit, I have an idiot for a son." So I remember him for that role. So I appreciate him like a priest that was a soldier and decided to change uniform when he saw too much. Poor man, you have no idea what you are going to see wearing the clothes. So I have to admit, this movie has a lot of cliche. They spend too much time showing us how she was slowly descending into evilness or madness or whatever. But somehow I still enjoyed it. What I really enjoyed is the way they faced the exorcism scene. I have to admit, when she began to spit eggs, I didn't think about the Holy Trinity, only because they are three eggs. So you are telling me that everything that is three in numbers can represent the Holy Trinity? No, I don't think so. I like the first time I saw the eggs, I thought about the
Yes.
snake corrupting Eve in the in heaven. So I was I was thinking about that. Like when she wakes up from the coma after 40 days, I could have bet my money that was the same time Jesus spent in the desert being tempted by Lucifer. So I liked that they took things that really happened and they twisted it, because the Antichrist is the opposite of Jesus Christ, of course. So he spent 40 days in the desert being tempted, and she spent 40 days in a coma. Jesus was born from a virgin, she was born from a prostitute. So I liked the parallel in this movie. I liked it, and I liked the idea that this is not a normal exorcism, because this time she's not possessed by a demon. She's the Antichrist. So there is nothing inside her that is possessing her. She's just coming to be what she was born to be. I like that idea. And I like the idea that sometimes to fight for the greatest good, you have to do something that is terribly wrong in our society, like killing the girl. But this is not going to work, because we realize that she's the Antichrist, so she's not possessed. So you simply can't kill her body, because she's basically she is supposed to be reborn like Jesus did with the resurrection. So I liked the idea, but at some point there are many plot holes, because it was impossible to fix all the details without plot holes. And what I can say that is, you have to decide if it's a good or a bad thing. It's clear that this movie was made in 2015, because at the beginning we see the black high-ranked member of the Vatican, and he survives. And then we have Father Lozano, who is a Latino, and he survives. So if the movie was made in the 80s or 90s, those two characters were going to die. Sure, for the first thing, they were going to die. So it's clear that this movie is made in another social climate. But I liked the black guy. I liked his role, and I liked the cardinal leaving the archives to him. So for once, I liked a character in another movie, and he didn't die. So I'm pretty happy
Yeah,
about that.
okay. I think I found like the priests and anyone working for the Vatican, I just found them really shady, and I was trying to work out if we were meant to be rooting for them or not, because A, they seemed shady, but they kept talking in a manner that was kind of creepy, and it's just like, oh, this is dark, and this is like, I don't know if I trust you, so I couldn't trust anyone. And maybe that was kind of the tone, that you're not meant to trust it. It's one of those films where the idea is so good. The idea of like these tapes at the Vatican that like show the history of demonic possessions, and so you're is really good. The idea of the Antichrist was a great idea, but they took too long to execute it. They went with she's possessed for so long that when they were like, "Ah, no, she is the Antichrist," I was like, no, we needed more signs a little earlier. We needed to play a little bit more into the mythology. Why is when the eggs came out, I'm like, there's going to be some bloody snakes hatching from those eggs. And I can't remember what movie it is, but there's a movie that has bloody snakes that hatch out of eggs. It might even be The Last Temptation of Christ. I can't remember, but it's
It's
just,
possible.
yeah. And I was like, oh, we're gonna see like she's coughing up, her baby snakes because she's just newly born as the Antichrist. But no, it was the frigging like, this is the Holy Trinity. And I'm like, no, they're eggs that you've literally painted on with like food colorings and symbols on. I'm just like, no. But the idea that like she was never possessed and this was always her destiny was really interesting. But it took too long to get to that. And that's why I say I like the end of the movie, because the fact that she was just winning people over and she has that big audience and it's all going to be like, look at me, I heal and I'm amazing and I'm so unassuming and like just a nice American girl. And it's just like, oh, that's so good. I love that idea. It just took so long to get there. Some of the acting was a bit stilted. I could have done with less, oh, she's in a mental asylum now. And I was like, well, it's a bit of a cliche. You should have done something else. I mean, I know other things have done it, like The Omen has done it and stuff, but there should have been, like, if you're going to go with all the cliches, there should have been some barking dogs that were like, oh my god, run away. There should have been some snakes. You know, she should have like had maybe some scenes earlier where someone recovered around her, so we got like a little hint of like not a big like major, but like, oh, that wound is healed, how strange. And then you kind of forget about it until the end, and then it all like it should have sowed some more seeds. And also some other things should have made sense, like the dad seemed really weird at the beginning when he like came with the knife to cut the cake, and he's like, "What's your problem, dude?" Like, I get that you might not like the boyfriend, but the boyfriend still got you there to be with your daughter. Like, there seems unnecessary like hatred between them, and I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop with him. I kept waiting for him to be like the guardian of the Antichrist, and that's why he's in the military, and he's been secretly watching over her, waiting for her to fulfill her destiny. But he was just a normal dude, and I was like, oh. And then I kept waiting for the priest to actually be the guardian of the Antichrist, and was actually not performing an exorcism, was actually turning to the dark side to make sure that the Antichrist came into the world. But no, he was just a normal dude. And I'm like, you're missing all the obvious beats. You're putting really obvious cliches in it, but you're not going in any of the directions that I want you to go in. And there's just little bits of useless scenes and information. So like, the person in the mental asylum that was doing her like reviews and stuff, and she was all like, "Oh, you've been giving someone a blowjob in the car park." We never found out if that was true or false. I'm assuming it was true. That's why she was like, but she just like, sign the documents and take her. I'm like, I don't think it works quite like that. Just sign the documents and take her. She's out back. I'm like, just like that. Just gonna wheel. You've just wheeled her outside. We can't help her. Sign and take away. I mean,
not only that, if the shell of the girl that we see on the wheelchair is someone who can be sent home, I am Julius Caesar.
Yeah, it's just like
so no. I the only thing I liked in the too long scene in the asylum is when she puts in her place the doctor, because no one liked the doctor, and we were very happy when she was called a slut. Yeah. Basically. So yeah, that was the only good thing in the whole scene. It was too long. We didn't need it. We didn't need to see people going crazy because she's whispering something through the walls and everyone decide that a riot is a good idea. And above all, we didn't need the scene in the hospital when the policeman is holding two light bulbs, and
where did he get the light bulbs from? Where? They're round light bulbs. They're not even the fluorescent tubes you get in hospitals. I'm like, where did you get them from?
And then everyone wants to know, what did she say to him before he killed himself? She said nothing. She just pointed out at something in the window. So, you know what? She said nothing. Just her mere presence pushed the man to kill himself. Yeah. And that doesn't make any sense. Because really, why him? Why not the other?
I think
just saying.
I think it should have been far more interesting, like, if they had, like, I mean, for a start, it's like she didn't say anything. The crow told him to stab his eyes out, potentially. But I think if they were going to go with the, like, people going mad, I think people should have not died so near to her. Like, you should have seen her interacting with people, and then people just mysteriously committing suicide, and them just trying to justify, like, people committing suicide. And then kind of, like, put it, like, if she was in a mental asylum, then maybe there were people in there that had done bad things. Like, maybe there was a paedophile in there, and so the paedophile goes and jumps off the roof. So they're like, well, the last person the paedophile saw was her. And, so he must have committed suicide because of her. But at the same time, it's a paedophile. Like, do we really care if a paedophile's committed suicide? So you kind of have that, like, people are dying, but there are people that you kind of justify it's all right that they died. So therefore it feels like, she's killing bad people. That's not a bad thing. There's so many little things they could have played with it to make it just a bit cleaner. And not quite so Oh, it's like they took too long in the hospital, they took too long in the mental asylum, and not enough time developing the Antichrist persona. And stupid
Yeah,
eggs.
yeah. I still live with my head canon that those eggs were representing the snake, not the Holy Trinity. I have to say, I liked the acting parts when she dislocates her shoulders and breaks her bones, and finally we hear real screams. I mean, those are the screams I want to hear when she's basically destroying her body and she's in a lot of pain, both physically and mentally. Those are the screams I want to hear. Those are screams that come from deep inside, and I like that. I like the moment she she broke the screams, and she came back to be the sweet little child she was, and she's trying to trick her father and the boyfriend to free her, saying, begging them to save her, calling for her daddy. I liked that scene. I liked. Then, of course, she started to jump on the roof, and then she basically came back like Jesus Christ, and she destroyed the whole house with flames. And okay, she what I like in this Antichrist is that she didn't need a Saint Thomas putting his finger in the woods to realize that that was really Jesus Christ. She did everything alone. She put her finger straight into the wounds in her arms, and she basically digged around with her fingers to show everyone that she was the Antichrist. So, yeah, okay, good thing you do that alone, because you know that when you do things alone, it's the only way to have things done well. Okay, I like that. But yeah, the end was a little bit
Yeah.
too extreme. And then, yeah, okay, when she grabs Father Lozano and she says, tell everyone that I'm here, that I'm arrived. And you are like, yeah, because everyone is going to believe that the Antichrist
Yeah.
is here. Yeah, everyone. Okay, so yeah, he did the only logic thing to do. He went to the Vatican and he basically screwed himself, because he is now one of the keepers of the archives. Okay, you screwed yourself, man. Really, you don't know what you did to yourself.
He could have just walked away from it and had a normal life. But no, he's
No.
now keeper of those files. And yeah.
Yeah, and we know what happens to the keeper of the archives usually. I still think this has some good ideas in between the cliches and the too long scenes and the scenes that don't make any sense. Okay, so thank you for listening to us, people. And if you want to join us, we have a Facebook page, Beneath Your Skin, and we can be found on Spotify. We also have a website on Pinecast, and we have a Twitter account at beneath_your. So join us and tell us what you think, and we will be happy to hear from you. And for now, bye bye.
Some pleasure talking to you all on this rare occasion that me and Guy are not quite on the same page. I think we've got some similar beefs and some similar like things, I think. But yeah, it didn't resonate as much with me. But you know what? You can't like everything. But so for now, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye, byes.